while the less valuable pieces were shipped by barge to be buried. By May 2002, the World Trade Center site had been cleaned up, and with all the evidence destroyed or removed, nobody could conduct any further investigations into how the buildings collapsed. The editor of Fire Engineering wrote months earlier that this destruction of evidence is illegal. He pointed out that our laws demand that rubble be saved from major disasters so that we can learn what happened and improve our buildings and fire prevention techniques. Our government violated the law when it destroyed the debris from the World Trade Center. Here are some of the government officials who tried to impeach President Clinton. Tens of millions of Americans were outraged when Clinton lied to us about what he and Monica were doing. These Americans proudly boasted that they are law-abiding citizens and that they will not tolerate government officials who cheat, lie, or deceive. Yet many of these same Americans either helped our government violate laws during the investigation of the World Trade Center collapse or ignored them. Ken Starr spent over $40 million investigating the sexual activities of President Clinton. Why didn't Republicans advocate giving money to the investigators of the World Trade Center collapse? Why did they have to depend on part-time scientists and a shoestring budget? In May 2002, FEMA released their report on the collapse of the buildings. Not surprisingly, the report does not explain anything. For example, rather than reveal their story as to how the fires caused Building 7 to collapse, the FEMA report states the following. The specifics of the fires in Building 7 and how they caused the building to collapse remain unknown at this time. Branches of our government spent 7 months investigating the collapse of the World Trade Center buildings, and at the end, they announced that they have no idea what happened to Building 7. If FEMA was a private company, we would demand our money back. Since it is a government agency, their worthless report is evidence that they are involved in covering up a scam. FEMA claims they cannot understand how Building 7 collapsed. But perhaps you and I can figure it out by watching this video. This video is poor quality. It was recorded from the network television news. As with the security video that shows Flight 77 crashing into the Pentagon, no one has come forth as of yet to provide good quality video of Building 7 as it collapses. At the top of Building 7 is a rectangular penthouse that contains air conditioning and other equipment. If you recall, the fires were on the lower floors, not near the roof. Why then would the penthouse be the first part of the building to collapse? How could the fires cause damage to the penthouse without damaging all the floors in between? Here's a different view. And another view. Since no fire has ever caused a steel building to crumble before, there is no way to judge if this dust could be considered typical. The person who took this next video decided to point his camera at Building 7 at just the right moment. If you've never seen a demolition of an old building, there's a DVD called What a Blast that shows how buildings are imploded using shaped explosive charges. This can sometimes take weeks to prepare. Notice that the dust comes from the base of the building, just as with Building 7. Also, the building falls down very quickly because the pieces are free-falling. The demolition charges are placed to cause the middle of the building to fall first in order to pull the outer walls inward. PBS has a documentary called America Rebuilds, in which Larry Silverstein, the landlord of Building 7, explains what happened.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Now the phrase, pull it, which you just heard Larry Silverstein use, is an industry term that means to demolish a building with a controlled, planned demolition. It is inconceivable that anyone would be running around in a building burning so badly, placing explosives in exactly the right places all within 7 hours. In fact, Implosions take a minimum of 2 weeks and up to 2 months to plan and place the charges. Even stranger is the fact that the Fire Department of New York does not even train their personnel to do controlled demolitions. They are only done by highly skilled, experienced specialists who plan and test far ahead. Now that you've seen how the building collapsed, obviously these minor fires were not responsible. If so, how did the fire destroy the entire steel structure in such a neat and precise fashion? Building 7 collapsed in the exact same manner that demolition companies destroy old buildings. They use explosives to shatter the joints holding the steel beams together. The explosives are detonated in a sequence that causes the building to fall vertically downward into a neat pile of rubble. Also, when the building is tall, the explosives are often timed to destroy the interior of the building before the exterior walls are broken, thereby causing the interior section to fall first. As the interior pieces fall, they pull the exterior walls toward the interior. This creates a pile of rubble with the exterior walls laying on top of the rubble. Photos of the rubble from Building 7 show exactly that, namely, the exterior walls lying on top of the debris from the interior. Normally, if a 47-story steel building crumbled into a pile of rubble due to minor fires, people around the world would be shocked and want to know what happened. Architects would be interested in understanding what happened so that they could design buildings better. People who live or work in tall buildings would wonder, can fire do this to my building? Part of the problem is that most people simply don't know much about Building 7 due to the extraordinary secrecy surrounding this collapse. We were frequently told of the evil of Bin Laden, but how often did you see the collapse of Building 7? How many articles did you find in newspapers or magazines about Building 7? The only explanation for this secrecy that I can think of is that nobody can explain how Bin Laden caused Building 7 to collapse. By keeping this issue a secret, are they hoping that people will forget about the incident rather than asking awkward and difficult questions about Building 7? Why the secrecy about Building 7? One possible reason for the secrecy about Building 7 is that it may have been the control center for demolishing the World Trade Center. The 23rd floor of this building was given $15 million worth of renovations to fabricate an emergency command center for Mayor Giuliani. For example, it was given bullet and bomb-resistant windows. There's nothing strange about adding reinforcements to a government office to protect them from attack. In fact, many retail businesses have bullet-resistant windows. However, this particular office had its own air and water supply, and it was designed to withstand winds of up to 160 miles per hour. Consider that when the towers fell down, clouds of dust and grit were thrown outward at a very high speed. The only people protected from that blast were in this special emergency command center. Of course, the city government claims that the entire building was evacuated at 9 in the morning, so nobody was inside this special reinforced bunker when the towers collapsed. This means that the city spent $15 million on this special reinforced bunker, and then everybody abandoned it just when it would have been useful. But did everybody really abandon Building 7? It would have been a most suitable place for people to supervise the attack because the 23rd floor provided an excellent view of the area, and the occupants were protected from the dust and the debris. To make the situation even more suspicious, as explained in the book Painful Questions, the flight paths of the two airplanes that hit the towers appear to have been on a course toward Building 7, as if this building was broadcasting a homing signal. The government's explanation for how the towers collapsed is often referred to as the pancake theory. The report created by FEMA has only 2 diagrams to explain this theory. The first diagram shows a fire, and the next diagram shows a floor falling down onto the floor below it. Supposedly, the falling floor breaks the joints holding the floor beneath it, and then both of those floors fall to the floor below that, which breaks that floor, and so on, eventually creating a stack of floors at the base of the building. The problem with this theory is that photographs of the South Tower show that the top